Hello and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Chris Yi.
And today we're going to be reviewing Cartaventura, the Vinland.
Some Nordic cultures pronounce the V as an F, I think, right? So anyway, so this is a small box. It's not quite a one-shot, and it's a replayable little card adventure. And it's also non-destructive, so after you're done playing it, you can pass it on to people. This is by Cosmos. It says 1 to 6 players, and I don't think that I would have 6 people sitting around the table doing this.
Reading the storyline as we go.
Yeah.
So we'll show you how it's played.
Here's everything that comes inside the box for a Cartaventura game, this particularly being the Vinland one here. This is actually not a rule book, this is a historical background teaching you a little bit about the setting and some of the historical facts about that. Everything that you need for the actual game is right here. This will also teach you how the game plays. The first card will basically tell you to read this, turn this card over. Have you played a Cartaventura game before? Because there's at least 3 different games in the series. If you have not, then you start reading card number 2 that shows you how the basic structures of it work. If you played a different one before, then go to card number 3 and begin the story. This little tutorial kind of shows you how the game works and when to flip things over, when to not flip things over. So let's go ahead and set up a little bit at the starting here, and then I'll show you how the rest is played. When you follow the setup rules on all the cards here, you're going to have a character. You are Leif Erikson. It tells you to draw card number 4, which gives you the opening story here. It draws you to tell certain cards here, which represent God's favors that you can spend over the course of the game. As you flip them over and have the rune, you can spend them for certain interactions and for certain checks. And then when you spend them, you flip the card back over. This will tell you that, hey, flip it back over, read through here, start with some of these things, read this card, begin everything. And then this is going to explain how the map works. Any map card that is explored, you've already been there. And on the compass on the bottom here, it'll say cards 9, 10, and 11. Put these cards out. And now you have the choices to kind of go about where you want to. Do you want to spend the night in the valley? And if you do that, you can make the choice here or here. Do you want to go look at the animal omens? You can either follow the ravens or you can follow wolf trails until you make these decisions. Or you can go over here to the Logsgometh and you can talk to the president of the Althing. And then if you choose to do that, when you choose to interact with one of these things, you make a choice or you just do what is written on the bottom. Flip this card over or draw the next card of the deck and read through that story, make choices, and then continue to play the game that way. So basically you'll just be exploring. Sometimes you come through here and you will reveal something that tells you then, hey, this is a new decision that's available and open to you. Sometimes you'll discover more map cards, which will then unveil more parts of the map. And you're just going to continue until you come across a card that has an ending. An ending card is going to look something like this. And it's either going to be that you died, or that you reach one of the 4 other successful endings. There are 5 endings to the game, and any ending that you come across will instruct you to go to the last card here. Since there's 5 different endings, you could, if you want, write in these slots here when you come across each of the unique endings, and you can play the game again over and over and try to reach all the different endings. That's, without giving away anything about the actual game here, that's kind of the structure of Cartaventura. So there's a trend in games to make little decks of cards that are stories or escape rooms or something like that. This is more in a vein of choose your own adventure book type story.
Yeah.
With a little bit of map exploration. Overall, I think that format works. I was impressed that there's no rulebook in the box at all.
Then you take out the first card and you're like, start.
Right.
And it teaches you how to play, which I appreciate.
This is a whole line of games as well. This is the first time that any of them have been reviewed at the Dice Tower, and so what I find interesting is that first card says, hey, have you played a Cartaventura game before? Do you know the system? And then it branches out. Yes, you've played it before. Then start at story card number 5. No, I haven't. And then it gives you the quick little rules explanation. And you're physically putting out the cards, flipping them over, because there's a little bit of a system to it. You don't just read a card, flip it over or anything. It will direct you in different
where you place things and how they lay out. And it builds a map. Those cards are building a map and you're making choices based on that map. Which I appreciate that visual nature of it. Unlike a choose your own adventure book where you've got your fingers in like 4 different spots so that you know what you need to go back to.
Poor kids with their digital ebook choose your own adventures. That must be
How do they have to put digital bookmarks in them?
Digital tabs, baby. Yeah. But no, so yeah, it is a card map, kind of like Seventh Continent, but obviously this is a much smaller scope of a thing. It tells a story. In this case, this one is based in Nordic lore and history. Mm-hmm. You're Leif Erikson. You're a real life historical figure, and you're kind of. I like the subject matter a little bit, right? We won't spoil anything, but it's the 1000s. You have to decide, how you want to try to guide your village, and I think that the story works pretty decently in it.
Sure. It's got some interesting mechanical elements to it. So you're reading, it's very story-based, and you have those decisions, but there's also kind of ability checks, and it's not like rolling dice. It all depends on what you've already done, the decisions you've already made, and you have a couple, like, god blessings, I guess, in front of you, and so some checks are kind of like, do you have that blessing or do you not have that blessing, basically? Do you succeed or do you fail? And so I appreciate that it's very simple and you don't have to sit and roll dice. You don't have to, have all this other extra stuff going on in the game. It can just be the cards. But I also found that very lackluster and very lacking in decisions, so to speak.
I don't know if I would agree with that necessarily, but I found that there were very few times to kind of reload a blessing. If you use it, you flip it over and it's spent. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you might be able to flip it back, make it active again. And I think, what fickle deities you have when they're like, nah, you used my blessing already, son. You're not going to get another one for a few months. You're like, come on! I don't know. That part was a little bit odd, but I think the nature of this game, the intent is that it might be one of those kind of like a time stories where you can play through it. You're very likely going to die your first attempt.
Like a good choose your own adventure book.
Right.
It's very, very similar.
Many paths lead to death, but there are 4 different positive endings.
Like successful, yeah. Like you've done, you've won.
Mm-hmm.
We did make our own save spot at some point because we didn't want to replay the whole game so that we could make it to an ending.
Right.
And but yeah, I think for me when I mean the like decision space when it comes to these checks, you have a few cards laid out and you can go a couple different directions, which I appreciate that level of decisions of like, oh, do I want to go talk to this person? Do I want to go to this weird cave? Do I want to go over here yonder somewhere? You have those choices, but you don't know ahead of time what you're going to need to be successful at that choice and that decision. Yes. So a game like Destiny's gives you all of this like interesting reading and lore, and you're moving along making choices, but you know ahead of time kind of what you're getting into.
This is very much, let's go to the cave. Oh, do you have this thing? You don't? You're dead.
Yeah. So there's that sense of like, I can't, there's not good ways to get those extra like benefits, and there's not really good ways to collect stuff throughout the game so that you can succeed at things. So that level of decision, I wish that there was a little bit more direction in that.
And that's why I make the time stories analog here, right? The analogy is that, you died. Okay, you're going to start over again. You're going to keep the blue blessing resource. You could have spent it here, but you realize as important as that is, you're going to hold on to it so that you come across this way, you go into the cave with the blue thing, and then you succeed in the cave. And, it is that idea of like kind of doing multiple runs of
remembering what you've done.
Yeah. And I'm not always the biggest fan of that. So I kind of preferred, I should say that I preferred to be able to have some knowledge ahead of time. Like, that cave, it seems like danger. Do we have the fight resource, the fight blessing? No. Let's avoid it. But you don't always know that. Sometimes you go there and they're like, oh, actually you needed the trickery blessing, the trickery resource.
You're like, I assumed that it would be fists, punchy situation. I guess not.
So, in that sense, I don't always love that. But the fact that there are 4 different, so to speak, positive endings means that you can make different choices that aren't necessarily always right, but you could still get somewhere that has, hey, that's kind of a cool story ending.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. I appreciate that overall the storyline was interesting. It was historical, but also a little fantastical. So I enjoy of like what went on with that. I do wish that the storyline had a better climax, I think. It definitely felt lacking. And I think part of that is just the nature of these kind of situations of like, you're moving in a direction, you find the end. Like, either you find the end or you die. Like, everything's very sudden. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those, like, I wish that there was a little bit more, like, ramp up to the story.
Yeah, and so the fact that there are 4 different endings might mean that you're going down one trail, you accidentally make a left turn instead of a right, and then also you come to an ending that you weren't building up for.
Emotionally ready for.
Emotionally or in-game ready for, and you're like, okay, this is our ending. So they say that you can replay it, and you can try to find all 5 different endings. Surprise, you're gonna find the you die ending. That's one of the 5.
I was like, you said there were 4, but now I understand.
Yes, the you died ending is definitely probably the first one you'll get. You could replay through this multiple times to find the different paths to the other endings. I didn't. We played it through the one time. I thought that was fun, and then we found where the 3 other endings were, and then just kind of backwards, reverse engineered the path to get there. And I thought, oh, that was interesting. And now I'm done with.
Now we're done.
I'm done with Vinland.
Yeah,
but I think I don't want to do necessarily so many runs of finding the different ending. I don't think that this game is so robust that it needs that.
Sure. But does it give you some elements and some feels of other video games or other games? Definitely. Is it basic and simple and small and compact? Yes, that's got that. Does it have a storyline that makes sense and works out even though there's translation and stuff? Because it wasn't originally, I think, written in English. And so I think all that works out too. So I think overall, I'm going to give this a 6 because I think that it's got some definitely good stuff going for it. I wish that there was more, like I said, there's just those better choices or ways to kind of like build up to choices and decisions. A little bit of knowledge beforehand before you make a decision. But other than that, like it's a solid story game and you can enjoy the story. And
it's also, in addition to everything that you said, it's small, it's compact, it's self-teaching and all that stuff. It's also regiftable. Mm-hmm. So I could see this one having some good, getting some good plays out of it. Because maybe you're not the type of person that wants to do multiple runs, but maybe you'll gift it to someone and they have fun playing it a few times. Then they gift it to someone. And sure. I like that model. I really do. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5. Because I almost could recommend this. Like a 7 is like, hey, I generally speaking recommend this. I think that this one is just shy of that a little bit for me because of some of the shortcomings of it. But I also appreciate that it's part of the form factor. Mm-hmm. It comes in just that little deck of cards. It's not hard to manage, and it's fun. But, like I said, it wasn't gripping enough to replay through it a few times. And I do look forward to seeing what the other settings are. I know there's another box coming out in Tibet, another one in Oklahoma. And so maybe as I play other of this series, maybe they will impress me and my thoughts will go up, generally speaking. And that's where I'm right there, 6.5.
I think that's fair. Well, I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Chris Yi.
Thanks for coming to the Dice Tower.
Have yourselves a great day.